Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik, and behind the camera as usual is Joshua Blanc. Now today we've got a special guest, our tussock moth, a spotted tussock moth, also known as the woolly bear. And he's just the cutest thing. Unfortunately, he's quite destructive. He leaves all these wonderful tracks on poplar leaves, and we have some examples we'll be working with today on the gel plate. And just showing you a few of these here. And he leaves some really fascinating marks behind. Here's a bigger view from our photograph. So I was working with this last night, and we're going to be doing a double page spread. Good for books and journals, and the usual routine, where you put your base layer on, you put your leaves on, you either take off the paint with a little bit of tissue paper, or you leave it on and print it. So we'll be doing a variety of those things. So let's start. So I have my smaller brayer, and we have a 5x7 gel plate. And our Baran, as usual, Amsterdam paints, a little palette knife, and our leaves. So I think we're good to go. We're going to start by making green this way, just by adding yellow. Just a tiny bit of paint. And then just brayer it on. And by just having, spots of color, you get an interesting background already. Don't need to mess with it too much. Just going to brayer off. Take some of the paint off. And then we're going to place some leaves. Now, when I was doing this last night, some of the tracks actually printed, which will be a bonus. I don't expect them to, but you just never know about these things. These are freshly picked poplar leaves, courtesy of Josh. On his way here, I made him pick some off local poplar down by the creek. And I just place them down in an interesting way. And if we're really lucky, some of those tracks will print. There we go. Now we're just going to use some tissue paper. Look at, isn't this interesting? These are all the times I had ferns here and poplar leaves there. Tissue paper does a really good job of picking up the paint. And you try and remove most of the paint on around the leaves. You can peek at it and see how well it's. And then the tissue paper is starting to get wrinkled, which is a really interesting effect. So we'll try and lift most of the paint. We're getting some lovely texture. Okay. As usual, we're printing on our Oriental paper, and I'm going to position it on one side. We're going to leave the leaves on this time. That will get us a nice white leaf. And our Baran. All right. And as you can see, there's not much of the background going to show, and we have some nice outlines of the leaves. Okay, so now we're going to take the leaves off. carefully. And that looks pretty good. We're going to wait for this to dry, and then we're going to do a release coat, and that will finish this first layer. So we'll catch you back after an interesting interlude. So we've dried things now. It's looking pretty good. And we're going to put some more color on here. This is, oh, reading the Dutch. Okay, Naples Yellow Deep. Here we go. And we just want a hint of color in the background. So we'll take an awful lot of it off. The main players are the leaves with the tracks on them. And since this is a double page spread, we're going to just use it as a stamp. And try and line up as best you can. And you can overlap a little bit, that might help. Then carefully flip your paper. Use your baren or your hands. We have a couple of wrinkles, but not a big deal because it just adds interest to a piece. Make sure you get your edges. And check to see if it's printed. Oh, it's nice. There we go. So there you see, and you can see the tracks. Isn't that just amazing? All right. So we have this side done now. So the next part is to reposition the leaves, re-ink, of course. I've taped the plate down because it tends to wobble and go all over the place. Get this out of harm's way for now. And, all right, so what colors are we going to use? We'll do maybe a blue. And a tiny bit of orange. Just spraying off so the color doesn't mix too much. This is just a wee bit of a rainbow roll. So you have sort of a little bit of green. And again, move fairly quickly here. Let's set some of these leaves down. I'm putting the leaves with the holes in them in the blue so that they show up really nicely. So we'll find a lot of leaves with blue here. And holes, what I meant to say. Okay. Here's another one. Right, your tissue paper. Now this one is really nice and wrinkled. And you're get that really in good shape. And this is actually quite pretty. All right, now take the leaves off. We don't need too much paint because we already have some background on that first layer. And to get this back and reposition as best you can. Because this is a double page spread or a book page, you'll be cropping, so I'm not so worried about the... All right. Well, we're looking at this, that's very interesting. Let's just put a layer, one more layer of color down. Maybe we'll do the orange. So I want just a small layer of color. And that will finish this one, and then we'll move on to black paper. And I'm going to add some thinner to it. So this is a golden open thinner. And what it does, it will just make a nice transparent layer. And it will just be like a kiss of color in the background without being too ridiculously different to the first print, because it is a double page spread, so you want everything to coordinate and yet still have its own essence. Right. And putting it down. And just flip it over. A few more wrinkles. Perfect. So maybe a little bit of spring and fall. And there you have it, our first double page spread. Now what you can do is, you know, cut them apart or leave them as they are, however you want to. You might put even an interesting little border here. There's all sorts of possibilities, but here's our little tracks, caterpillar tracks on poplar leaves. All right. So on to our black paper. Now the thing with black paper you have to remember is that we're going to have much lighter colors that we have to be concerned with, and that the black will show as some details. For example, it'll come through in the holes in the leaves. So think about this as your concept, that the black will either outline or display some features in from the leaves. So, and that's what we're going to be going for. So I've put some more paint on, a little bit of orange and that deeper yellow. Now for this layer, you don't want it too thin. Again, place all your leaves. Remember that this part will show. And so I'm going to pick some leaves that have lots of holes. I was using this one last night. That's kind of cute. And this one has holes. And this one has holes. One more. That's where the caterpillar has chewed on it. This one has a nice track, and hopefully that will print. Okay, same as before. This would make great wallpaper. And we print this on the one side. Ooh, I don't know if I want to do any more to that. See our holes, aren't they lovely? Okay. Well, we'll think about that one. Sometimes the first print is what it is, right? And it's gorgeous. Tea color. And the paint is quite wet, so what I'm going to do is we're going to print it right away. Black paper gives you that drama that is so wonderful. This is just Canson paper. It's about as thick as tag paper. Well, if we're lucky, that's going to print. Yes. And again, I think I'll leave it. That is just gorgeous. You have to know when to stop. So, well, as usual, it's been a fun session here at Shoreline Studio. I hope you'll join me again for an adventure in printmaking, and sometimes a little bit of painting. We do such a variety of things. Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves and your families in these terrible times. And we'll see you again soon here at Shoreline Studio. And I'm not sure what we're doing next, but we have a field trip coming up. So more adventures, I think, with mushrooms. So catch you another time. Bye for now.